Have you ever wondered why some men create attraction without any visible effort, while others try everything and still fail miserably? Today, we're going to explore an experiment that society prefers to keep hidden, because what women say they want and what actually seduces them are two completely different universes. This video is not politically correct, it's uncomfortable, but that's exactly why it's true. I am Machiavelli. And if there's one thing I learned from watching kings, courtesans, and men who conquered without even speaking, it's this. Female desire follows hidden laws, not the romantic words society expects you to say. Seduction is not what you were taught. It's a game of power, perception, and behavior, operating beneath the surface of consciousness. Today, I'll reveal a disturbing experiment. Not because it's manipulation, but because it's human nature in its rawest form. I won't teach you how to please. I'll teach you how to become the kind of man women desire, without even being able to explain why. So pay attention, because the first lesson is not in what you do for her, but in how she perceives you when you're not trying to impress her. In my observations of the Florentine courts, of princes, and of the men noble women secretly desired, I discovered something fundamental. The man who constantly tries to please becomes invisible. What we call attraction today is no different from the dynamics of political power. The man who constantly seeks approval reveals his insecurity. The man who needs external validation becomes dependent. And dependence, brother, destroys every possibility of real desire. No one feels attracted to someone who gives away his entire world without limits. The moment a man shows that his happiness depends on her attention, he instantly loses his magnetism. Sweet words and endless compliments don't create attraction. They create obligation. And obligation is the enemy of mystery, of challenge, and of deep desire. The most devastating mistake men make is believing attraction is won through visible effort, through endless attention, total availability, and constant service. It's an ancient mistake that has led millions of men to absolute frustration. Look at yourself in the mirror and ask, how many times did you try to win her interest by being the most attentive, the most available, the most helpful? And how many times did it actually work? Look around you. The men who chase, who explain every move, who constantly seek her approval, usually end up in the friend zone or completely forgotten. The man who understands the game of attraction does not show desperation. His presence has weight, his eyes communicate silent authority, and his behavior invites curiosity without revealing everything. The experiment begins here, and it is deeper than you imagine. This is not about cheap tricks or scripted lines. This is about understanding how the female mind truly reacts when it faces a man of real value. Every action, every decision, every carefully timed absence must communicate one essential message. Your life has purpose beyond her. Your time is scarce, and your attention is not something you give to just anyone. In the court of Prince Lorenzo, I learned that the men who weren't afraid to show complete independence, who didn't chase the approval of the powerful, were the only ones who finally gained true respect and real influence. In seduction, it works exactly the same way. The man who is already complete before he meets her, the man who doesn't need her validation to feel valuable, becomes a silent, irresistible magnet. No one desires what is too easy to get. No one respects what is always available without conditions. This is the first law of desire, and it operates with mathematical precision. In every interaction between men and women, there's something deeply revealing in what women don't say. It's not a game, it's not a conscious lie. It's simply the difference between what they think they should desire and what actually attracts them on an instinctive level. While most men believe that being completely honest, transparent, available, and pleasing will create attraction, biology says the exact opposite. The more predictable you are, the more transparent you become, the easier it is for her to anticipate every move you make. And once she can predict your reactions, once she can completely read your mind, interest disappears like smoke. Seduction, just like politics, which I studied my whole life, is not about total exposure. It's about strategic control. And control only exists when certain parts of you remain inaccessible, when some aspects of who you are stay hidden, even from people who think they're close to you. Look at the great leaders throughout history. They never revealed all their cards. They never explained every decision. A king who revealed his full thinking was a vulnerable king, easy to manipulate, easy to predict, easy to forget. In attraction, the same rule applies. A woman is not drawn to the man whose mind she can fully decode. She becomes magnetized by the man who still has layers she can't fully uncover, by the man who has depth she can't understand instantly, by the man whose actions and emotions don't perfectly match her programmed expectations. That uncertainty, that calculated mystery, is what awakens her deepest curiosity and turns shallow interest into real desire. But don't confuse mystery with lying or deception. This isn't about manipulating with false stories or creating a fake version of yourself. It's something much more subtle and much more powerful. Keeping certain parts of your life as privileged information, not revealing every thought that crosses your mind, not explaining every decision you make, not announcing every next move. Every piece of information you hold back strategically is an act of silent power, a way to keep her attention without ever chasing her desperately. When she realizes there are parts of you she can't fully understand or completely control, something changes inside her brain at a deep level. You are no longer the man who is totally accessible and predictable. Now you become an emotional and intellectual challenge, a mystery she wants to solve, a territory she feels the need to explore. And that need for understanding creates an emotional investment that no compliment could ever produce. This mystery doesn't only exist in the words you don't say, it exists mainly in how you behave. Your actions must be intentional, but not always obviously explainable. Let your decisions feel spontaneous, unpredictable, but never chaotic or random. Let your behavior suggest real depth, intellectual complexity, emotional intelligence, and an inner world that is not fully open to just anyone. A long-held gaze, an ambiguous smile, a strategic pause in conversation can communicate more than 1,000 perfectly chosen words. And most importantly, it hints that behind your visible surface, there are layers she still hasn't discovered. And that creates an almost obsessive curiosity. Every small sign of your complexity activates her imagination in ways you cannot directly control. And when female imagination is activated correctly, it creates scenes, possibilities, and emotions far more powerful than any reality you could show her directly. It pulls her emotionally into you, without you needing to say it explicitly, without you needing to ask, without you needing to beg. It simply happens as a natural result of your calibrated behavior. But mystery also requires extreme patience and absolute control over your impulses. This isn't about creating unnecessary confusion or playing childish games. It's about letting intrigue grow naturally and organically. Anticipation is the most crucial ingredient in the entire process. The more time she invests trying to decode you, trying to understand you, trying to predict your next move, the stronger her attraction becomes. Every time she doesn't get an immediate, predictable response, every time one of your gestures has an ambiguous meaning she must interpret, she is forced to spend precious mental energy on your existence. And mental energy is the most limited, yet most powerful resource in human relationships. When someone invests conscious time and deep thought analyzing your behavior, they are creating an invisible bond, but an extremely strong one. A desire that goes beyond surface logic, beyond physical appearance, beyond pretty words that anyone can say. As you practice this art of calibrated mystery, you'll begin to notice something else. It doesn't only affect romantic attraction, it also transforms the respect people give you and the natural authority you project in every space. Because a person who is completely transparent, someone who can be read like an open book with no hidden pages, can easily be seen as predictable, weak, dependent, or simply too simple. On the other hand, the man who knows how to keep certain strategic secrets, who perfectly controls what he reveals and what he keeps private, is perceived as strong, intelligent, confident, and deeply valuable. That perception of inner strength is absolutely essential, because real attraction is not built only on your physical appearance or on romantic words you can say. It is built on the feeling that she is dealing with a man who has real, independent value. A man with complete emotional autonomy and total control over his own inner world. But mystery is not something static, something you maintain in the same way forever. It is a dynamic, fluid game, a delicate balance between what you reveal and what you keep hidden, between the closeness you allow and the distance you maintain. Every interaction you have with her must be calibrated with almost surgical precision. Reveal too much, too soon, and you destroy all the intrigue you built. Reveal too little, and you create emotional disconnection or frustration that pushes her away. The master key is this: allow her to discover small pieces of you gradually, in a controlled way, while always keeping the feeling alive that there is still more to explore, something valuable she still can't fully possess. This creates a continuous cycle of growing interest and sustained desire, where every moment with you leaves new questions inside her mind, and keeps her curiosity constantly activated. And here is the direct connection to the next essential strategy: emotional scarcity. Because mystery alone is not enough, unless it is perfectly combined with a clear perception that your value is limited and your availability is not infinite. An intrigued mind will naturally seek answers. But if you're always available, always accessible, always one message away, mystery loses its magnetic effect completely. The power of mystery multiplies exponentially when it comes with strategic distance, with calculated emotional scarcity, with the clear perception that your time and attention are not infinite resources she can consume without limits. Intrigue awakens initial interest, but scarcity is what transforms that shallow interest into active, almost obsessive desire. When she feels there are parts of you she can't reach easily, when she senses you're not always available waiting for her call, her mind begins to invest mental resources in you. She starts anticipating the next opportunity to access what keeps slipping away from her. And that is exactly where seduction becomes an art, deeper, darker, and devastatingly effective. Imagine a simple but revealing scenario. Everything you want in life, everything that attracts you, is always available with no restrictions. Every message you send gets a reply within seconds. Every invitation you make is accepted immediately. Every attention you give is returned with zero delay. At first, this might feel pleasant, even comforting and easy. But very quickly, faster than you think, it becomes completely predictable, monotonous, boring, and what once felt intensely desirable loses all shine and all magnetism. That is how the human mind works at its most basic, primitive level. When something is abundant and always available, we automatically stop valuing it. When something is scarce and difficult to obtain, the mind becomes obsessed with possessing it, understanding it, holding onto it at any cost. This is the invisible law that governs political power dynamics, and seduction as well. And it's a law very few people truly understand, or dare to apply consciously and strategically. In my years studying power and observing the most sophisticated courts, I learned something fundamental. The prince who is always available to his subjects, who never withdraws his favor, who never pulls back his attention, who never creates even the smallest uncertainty, soon stops being genuinely admired and respected. Political loyalty, just like romantic desire, must be constantly earned. It cannot simply be guaranteed from the beginning. If you apply this principle to attraction between men and women, you'll notice a clear pattern. When a man always replies instantly, when he is always present and available, when he gives himself without limits or boundaries, his magnetism gets diluted until it disappears. Attention offered without measure loses all perceived value. It becomes a constant stream of availability that no longer creates real interest, only comfortable, boring habit. The experiment I propose, the one that reveals the raw truth of real seduction, is this. Learn to manage your availability in a completely strategic way. This does not mean being cruel with someone's feelings or acting like an emotionless, manipulative idiot. It means deeply understanding the psychology behind human desire and using it intelligently in your favor. Withdraw your presence subtly from time to time. Don't respond instantly to every message like you have nothing more important to do. Don't automatically accept every invitation she makes. Make your time feel like what it truly is, a limited and valuable resource. Let your attention not be something she can take for granted, but a special privilege, something she must earn through her own attention, her genuine curiosity, and real sustained interest. At the beginning, when you start using this tactic, it will probably feel uncomfortable, both for you and for her. That initial resistance is completely natural. Both of you will feel the psychological tension created by this new distance. But that tension is not your enemy. It is your most powerful ally. Real human desire needs a playing field where risk exists, where uncertainty is real, where the possibility of loss is present. When your attention becomes something that cannot be guaranteed, its perceived value multiplies exponentially. It becomes something that triggers repeated thoughts throughout the day, constant mental analysis, and most importantly, active, obsessive interest that simply wasn't there before. Now observe how this works in real daily life. When a man clearly shows he has a rich, complete life of his own, real interests that exist independently from her, a personal world that does not depend on her approval or presence. He becomes instantly more attractive on an instinctive level. Emotional scarcity becomes a direct mirror of your real inner power. It's not physical absence that seduces by itself. It's the psychological feeling that not everything in your life is under her control, that there are fundamental parts of your existence that are untouchable and unreachable for her, and that real access to those parts requires genuine effort and conscious attention from her side. The human mind responds to this stimulus with an almost primitive fascination, and what she once saw as simple indifference now becomes a challenge, an emotional and intellectual puzzle, a mystery she feels the need to solve, a valuable target that is worth chasing with sustained effort. The key is finding the perfect balance between two extremes. You must not disappear completely from her life, because long total absence can cause permanent forgetting or immediate replacement by another man. But you also must not remain constantly available with no exceptions, because that predictable presence creates total indifference and deadly boredom. This is an almost scientific precision game, a silent, elegant dance, where every move you make, every calculated withdrawal, and every perfectly timed return has a clear strategic purpose. Learn to value your time deeply as the rarest and most precious resource you possess in this life, because the way you manage your attention and your emotional availability directly determines the level of genuine interest others will inevitably feel toward you. As you gradually introduce this strategy into your daily life, you'll begin to notice deep and permanent changes in the way women perceive your real value. They start measuring your importance not by what you constantly give them, but by what they could potentially lose if they don't earn it or don't protect it. This is the purest essence of strategic emotional scarcity, deliberately creating a psychological playing field where your attention is not automatic or guaranteed, where the interest you show is not secured in advance, where every interaction between you carries real weight, deep meaning, and real consequences. And inside that carefully built psychological space, attraction becomes intense, focused, genuine, and long-lasting. There is no need for rehearsed sweet words, no need for exaggerated material gifts, and no need for obvious attempts at emotional manipulation. The simple strategy, executed correctly, of not always being available, creates magnetic attention, sustained interest, and deep desire, naturally and organically. And now we reach the point where everything we've explored so far becomes real, into a devastating psychological effect. The exact moment when attraction stops being a shallow game of calculated gestures and becomes something deeper, silent, and absolutely irresistible on an instinctive level. True Machiavellian seduction does not show itself through perfectly structured flattery, through constant predictable phone calls, or through flashy gifts that anyone with money can buy. It emerges naturally when, at an unconscious level, she feels that you are valuable territory that could be lost at any moment, that your presence in her life is not guaranteed, that you are scarce and valuable. This is the sacred territory of masculine emotional independence, the place where real authority lives, and where the authentic power of a complete man is born. In my detailed observations of the most powerful princes and the most influential courtiers, I discovered a pattern that repeats without exception. The ones who held real power were not the ones who desperately clung to every favor they received, but the ones who had a strong world of their own, a clear purpose in life that didn't depend at all on external approval or validation. In seduction between men and women, the same principle applies with mathematical precision. The man who is not afraid of losing himself in someone else's desire, the man who keeps his identity intact, awakens a subtle but devastatingly powerful fear in others, the fear of potentially losing him. When she clearly realizes that you have your own defined path, your own exciting passions, and your own valuable time that she cannot control or predict, she automatically begins to value every moment she spends with you. This silent fear, almost invisible on the surface, but deep inside her psyche, creates a desire far more intense and lasting than any romantic love declaration could ever produce. The psychology behind this is simple in essence, but extremely powerful in application. Human beings instinctively fear what might escape our reach and our control. And in the context of love and romantic attraction, this clear perception of potential risk is exactly what ignites the burning flame of genuine passion. This isn't conscious manipulation, and it isn't cruel psychological games. It is simply recognizing human nature as it truly is, and acting in perfect alignment with that reality. A man who becomes a genuinely limited resource, whose attention is not infinite and is not always available, awakens a magnetic force of attraction that no direct visible effort could ever create. It's crucial to understand this deeply. This strategy is not about total absence, and it's not about calculated emotional coldness. It is a perfectly calibrated combination of meaningful presence and strategic space. You show up in her life, yes, you absolutely do. But when you appear, your presence has real weight. It has perceived value. It has deep meaning. You're not there just to fill emotional emptiness in her life. You're there to add an entirely new level of intensity and depth to her full life experience. Every interaction becomes something memorable, not a boring, predictable routine. Every message you exchange, every meeting, every gesture you make, communicates without words that your time is genuinely valuable, that your energy is precious and limited. And the natural consequence is inevitable. Her mind begins to calculate constantly, to anticipate your next move, to obsessively wonder whether her connection with you is secure or at risk. And that psychological uncertainty becomes the most powerful catalyst for deep desire and real obsession. Because real seduction, the kind that remains and grows over time, is never built on brute force and never on desperate insistence. It is not won through rehearsed sweet words or through superficial gestures anyone can copy. It is won through authentic, powerful presence, through real mystery that invites exploration, and through silent, complete self-mastery. Every step of this uncomfortable but real experiment proves the same thing. The man who perfectly controls his emotions, the man who protects his absolute independence, even in the middle of attraction, and the man who knows exactly when to appear and when to strategically withdraw, becomes irresistible on an instinctive level, without needing to beg for attention, without needing to justify every decision, without desperately chasing her approval. Deep female desire is born directly from the fear of losing what cannot be fully possessed, the magnetic pull created by authentic emotional scarcity, and the natural magnetism of a man who is genuinely complete, without emotionally depending on anyone else. Women don't truly seek a man who gives them everything with no limits. They seek a man who is truly worth conquering, a man whose presence carries real weight in her life, whose absence creates a noticeable void, and whose gaze awakens uneasiness and deep curiosity. In seduction, just like in political power, the one who needs less wins more. This is not cruel, conscious manipulation. It is simply understanding human nature for what it is and acting with clear, intelligent strategy. This is not idealized romantic love, and it is not easy, shallow conquest. It is becoming a figure that inspires genuine desire because you are autonomous, confident, and deep at your core. If you truly understand this at a deep level, you will finally realize that real and lasting attraction is not forced through visible effort. It is positioned through calibrated behavior. It is not begged for through desperate pleading. It is projected through silent authority. And in the end, the man who fully masters this silent, powerful art doesn't just win hearts temporarily. He understands the fundamental rule behind every real human relationship. The true power of desire lives in absolute emotional independence and in the clear perception of what could be lost if it is not valued properly. And only the man who truly understands it, only the man who lives it, becomes irresistible in the most Machiavellian, deepest, and most truthful sense that exists. That's how the experiment works, brother. It isn't beautiful by romantic standards, it isn't fair by conventional morality, but it is deeply human. It is pure nature. Real seduction is not about convincing someone with logical arguments. It is about positioning yourself as a man of value. It's not about desperate chasing. It's about becoming a man who is genuinely worth reaching. Remember this and carve it deep into your mind. In love, just like in political power, the one who needs less always wins more. This is the law, and this law never fails.